Hello everyone, welcome. This is IST219. We are going to start our journey by installing the Ubuntu operating system on Hyper-V. In front of me is a Windows machine. This is Windows 10. Windows 11 should be fine also. You need to have Hyper-V, of course, installed or enabled through the Windows features. We are going to start by creating a new virtual machine. We'll call it, for example, Linux Ubuntu Focal, which is the version or the release name, and then I'm going to call it test, so I can differentiate it between the other existing machine. I'm going to select generation 2. I'm going to boost the memory a little bit to 3 GB. I'm going to disable dynamic memory for now. Make sure to select basically any virtual switch, as long as it will give you internet access. For me, I have external virtual switch. On your lab machine, you might have something called EVS. Both of them should work fine. I'm going to leave this untouched. Then I'm going to select the bootable image file in downloads. You can find it here. You can obtain this file, by the way, if you go to releases.ubuntu.com/focal. You can download this file from here and use it as a bootable image, like so. Then I'm going to hit finish. Afterwards, before running the machine, there are some prerequisites we have to do. The first thing is make sure that you are booting from the DVD, which contains the installer for our system. Disable secure boot, because it will prevent you from loading the virtual machine. At least have 4 virtual processors, and that's about it. Apply, okay, then we can start our machine. Once you start it, it will give you this prompt. Just select Ubuntu, the first option, and then wait for the machine to boot. It is highly recommended if you are doing any kind of virtualization, whether it's Ubuntu or Windows or any other system, to have an SSD drive in your machine, because it will speed things up for you tremendously. If you are using HDD, everything will feel slower most of the time, because virtualization is a little bit expensive in terms of read and write operations. Okay, now we are greeted with the installer, which will prompt us to either try the system or install it. For me, I'm going to install it. I'm going to select English, no problem. Later on we can add any additional keyboards. We are going to select minimal installation. Full or normal installation will install a lot of things that we're simply not interested in during this course, so I'll avoid using these things. In addition, I will skip downloading any additional updates for now. We are going to do it through the commands, actually. Then we will hit continue. So in this page, it is telling us to what partition the hard disk, however we want. Okay, so either we can select something else and choose the partitions that we want, or we can let the system decide for us and erase the entire disk and create basically 2 partitions. It will create 2 partitions, one for system and one for us. So I think this is the option. Once we hit install, it will prompt us that I'm going to create these 2 partitions. Okay, I'll tell it okay, thank you, continue. Then afterwards, what we need to do is basically create a user. We need to select the region. It will, of course, if we are connected to the internet, it will try to guess your region. This way it will give you the correct time. You can see the time here. Of course, it's not accurate still. Now it is accurate, actually, after I select the region. Okay. Now I can select the name. For you, I just advise to set the name as the first initials. So AN, it's the first initial of my first and last name. Okay, and AN PC also here. PC for the computer name. Okay, it is already in use because I have another virtual machine actually running. Okay, so I'll just call it ANPC1 for now. Okay, I'll set the password, and then for the login option, I don't want it to log in automatically. I want it to ask me for password each and every time because we might actually add other users to the system. Then I will hit continue, and with this the installation is almost complete. You can see the installation process did not actually take any time, but the configuration after the installation is what is important. Okay, this is basically, it's like a tutorial. It's telling you some useful information about this release. You can read through it if you want. Of course, at that time these were considered features, but right now the latest version is actually having much more additions than this, which is a jellyfish at the moment. You can of course also expand this here to see a log of the tasks being performed by the installer. After the installation is complete, it will ask us to reboot. Of course, Hyper-V by itself, automatically it will deattach the ISO file. If it doesn't do that, we'll do it manually. We can check now after we reboot the system. Now, the first things we are going to learn in the next lesson are going to be all about the shell. Linux is using bash as the terminal or the way to execute our terminal commands or shell commands. We are going to learn basically how to navigate the file system first, and then afterward we are going to learn some text files manipulation commands. Okay, how to read text files, how to write and read from them, create a new directories, and so on and so forth. So this is the agenda. This, I think, is doing some checking now, which I can skip if I want to, but I'm going to let it do something. Of course, again, depending on your machine, this process might take from 1 minute to 5 or sometimes even 10 minutes if you are using an HDD. Ubuntu is one of the most popular distributions of Linux. It is widely used, and we can consider it as one of the most friendly distros out there. So it is always a good starting point for those who are interested in learning the ins and outs of the Linux operating system. Of course, there are other distributions. You can find a full list of distributions as we talked about it in the lecture. In distributions, I forgot the full URL, but it is shared in the LMS. You can find it there. And you can see a full list of Linux distributions, Debian, Red Hat. There are many flavors. We call them flavors, right? If you like Ubuntu, maybe the closest match to Ubuntu would be Fedora. If you want more control, maybe you can try Arch Linux. You can find a lot of variants there. Okay, the installation is almost done. Of course, if you want to experience the operating system in a better and faster way, you can dual boot Ubuntu on your system. So basically, instead of loading the ISO file through Hyper-V, what you can do is create a bootable USB flash drive, which is going to be actually one of the assignments. And once you attach the USB drive to the laptop and reboot it, you can choose to boot from the USB, and then you can install the operating system directly on the hard disk. So this is another way to experience the system in its full power, okay? Because Hyper-V will always limit the system capabilities. It is a virtualization tool after all, okay? So if you want to experience the full power of the system, it is always recommended to install directly on the hardware. Don't worry, you will not lose your Windows installation. You can dual boot. Dual means both systems can exist at the same time, but only one system can run mutually, okay? So you can choose either to boot to Windows and continue using Windows thereafter, or you can choose to boot Ubuntu and then continue using Ubuntu. So this way you can experience both systems. You can switch between them however you please. Okay, usually it's doing a lot of checking this time, I think. The internet speed, of course, plays a huge role in the speed of the installation because it is doing some downloads. I'm going to hit restart now. It's going to reboot the virtual machine. It's telling me please remove the installation media and press enter. That means the Hyper-V does not actually remove the DVD. So I'm going to turn off the machine like so. Then I'm going to go file settings. Then I'm going to remove the DVD drive. Okay, you can see it is actually, even though it's there, it is the bootable ISO file is not actually included or attached to the DVD drive. Anyway, we don't need it anymore. We can just start it again. The next time you start it, it will load directly into the system. And we can, of course, it will ask us to enter our username and password. After we enter our username and password, then we will be logged in. Okay, this red lock means that secure boot is disabled for this Hyper-V. You can see the lock is unlocked. Okay, secure boot is, of course, something. It's a feature basically created by Microsoft to ensure that the system or the drive of the system is encrypted and the bootloader is not manipulated by anybody, basically. Okay, it is using the trusted. It relies also on the trusted platform module to do automatic encrypting and unencrypting of the hard disk on boot. So you don't need to attach a USB drive or a key to unencrypt the drive each and every time you boot it. It's something, basically it's a security feature, okay. Right now it is booting the system. Maybe the first time it will be a little bit slow, but then afterwards you'll see an improved booting time, hopefully. Okay. And this is it basically. Congratulations. You created your first Linux machine. Of course, after you boot up, it is recommended to, actually for us it is not recommended to sign in with anything. You can just skip next This is all improvement. You can choose to opt in or not. No, don't set any system info. Next. Privacy, by default it is disabled, which is something good. Next, done. It might prompt you to install or upgrade your system. Don't do that, please. For now, we want to stay on this version of Ubuntu. Of course, now you have access to the terminal. And this is it, basically. Thank you for watching. We will continue our lab demos in the next episode, inshallah. Thank you.